So the purpose of this video is to pretty much try and get you familiar with the Revit user interface. If this is your first time using the program, if you're a beginner, then yeah, we're really just going to try and walk through each piece of this user interface and try to get you more comfortable with working in the software. So if this is the first time that you've launched the Revit software, this is usually the first screen that you're going to see, and this is the recent file screen. But you can also open up other files from this screen, as well as create new files. It's organized into two panes. There's the left and the right. And on the left, there's the open and new. And on the right are all of the most recently opened files that you may want to reopen again quickly. In either case, you have a models area and a family area. So on this left side, you would use the buttons to either open an existing file that would bring up a browse window, and you could go out to your hard drive and locate that file. Or like I said, you could click the new button, and this would allow you to create a new project file. If you would rather reopen a file that you worked on more previously, then as long as it's listed over here in the recent file, you could just simply click the link and that would open that project for you right there. I'm going to go ahead and click the sample architecture project file that comes preloaded into the software. If you have access to that file, go ahead and do the same. If you don't, you can open up any file on your system. It doesn't really matter what you have open for us to be able to talk about the user interface. We're now in a model file or a project file. This is the most common type of file that you're going to work in Revit. We also have family files back on the recent file screen, but we talk about those later in the future. For now, we're going to be working in the project environment only, and this is what the general user interface looks like. So let's just sort of walk through each of the overall pieces of the user interface and get familiar with it. Let's start at the very top on the left-hand side. You have a bank of icons referred to as the QAT, or the Quick Access Toolbar. It includes lots of shortcuts to standard common commands. Open, save, undo and redo, print, as well as the default 3D view opener. Now below those group of icons is the ribbon. Now the ribbon goes across the full width of the screen. It starts with the file menu here on the far left, and then you have the architecture, structure, steel, systems, all the way over to the modify tabs next to that. Now there are various icons available on each tab. This is the primary way that you would interact with those commands. If you want to run a command, you find it on the various tabs and you click the appropriate icon or menu. Now, what you'll notice on my screen is that most of the buttons are currently grayed out and unavailable. That has everything to do with the kind of view that I currently have open. One of the most important things you want to know about Revit's user interface is that it's context sensitive. This means that what's available for you to do at any given moment completely depends on the current context. What mode are you in? Are you editing something? Or are you creating something? You have to be in the right kind of view. So let's talk about views and where to find them next. If you look at the left hand of your screen, there are two palettes stacked on top of each other. There's the Properties palette, and then right below is the Project Browser. Now, Project Browser is like the contents of the project, and it will have several different items available for us to open, and they're all called various views. The Properties palette that is right above the Project Browser. So currently you'll see that it says Floor Plan here at the top. If I click back on this Title Sheet tab, notice it'll say Sheet at the top. So simply clicking between the two tabs changes the context and therefore what properties are available. I'll click back here to the Level 1 tab. Now in addition to switching between views, if you select things or start commands, that will also have an impact on properties. So if I come over here into this model and select one of these elements on screen like this wall here, notice that the properties is now telling me about that selected wall and its properties. If I click an empty white space, it deselects that wall and just goes back to telling me about the floor plan. So another example of this sort of context-sensitive nature of Revit. Now if you run a new command, say for example the wall command, so instead of selecting an existing wall, let's say I wanted to draw a new one, so I click the wall command and that will execute that command, and notice that has a big change on the interface. The color of the ribbon has changed, and the properties palette is now showing us properties of walls again, but this time instead of it being an existing wall, it's showing me the properties of the wall that I'm about to create. And then that exposes the next area of the user interface, the options bar. So again, it's not important that you know what all those options mean right now. It's just important that you notice that they're there. So simply running a command like the wall command now gives us all of these various options that are available to us while that command is active. So now I'm just going to cancel that command without actually drawing the wall. And to do that, I'll just use the modify tool right here. Think of that as just like a reset command. It'll just cancel the current command, kind of reset the interface, and I'm sort of back where I started from. Now, each view window, like level 1 in this title, well, level 1 in this case, has a bank of icons at the bottom left-hand corner. The bottom left-hand corner. And these control the different settings of the view in particular. There's the scale, and then there's the level of detail, and then there's the different shades of views. There's a variety of other temporary display modes. And what you'll see is if you click back on the Sheet tab, you notice that there are only 2 icons available for you. But if I were to click on the Level 1 tab, now there are several more. That's another example of this context indicating to us what's available. The very bottom of the screen we have the status bar. Now the status bar is broken into 3 parts. On the left there's the message side. So if you mouse over some existing object, like in this case this wall, the message will tell you about the wall, or it might tell you about some other object close to it like the grid. If you're out in empty space, then the message will tell you something about selection. So think of this little message bar as just sort of feedback from Revit letting you know, hey, maybe what to do next, or what you might expect to come. Now in the middle, we have some other icons, like the work set icon. So if you were to be coordinating with different disciplines, you would click this icon and it would bring up the different work sets available to you. Now over here, on the far right, we have the selection toggles. And those just control what classification of elements is currently selectable. So there are certain groups of elements that we can kind of turn off their selectability, and that's going to be indicated by whether those icons have a little red X on them or not.